the Palworld lawsuit's not what we think, apparently. I've watched Palworld before. I like him. I like his content. The Palworld versus Nintendo lawsuit, this is, I'm assuming, going to explain some of it and why it's bad.
Listen up, everyone. Today's story actually does matter a lot. Nintendo are suing Palworld, but it's not for the reason that you think. It's not
okay,
because
so right off the rip, from my research and what I've seen, it looks like they're trying to do patent infringement, not copyright infringement. So instead of Lucario looking like Anubis or whatever, vice versa, Nintendo's going after Pocket Pair or the makers of Palworld because they want they had like a mechanic in their game with like catching with the 3-tick ball system or whatever. I have my own thoughts on that, but he'll probably explain stuff like that. But I don't know exactly, when did this come out? 2 days ago? Okay, yeah, so
designs are too similar. It is cold-blooded business. And that is a quote. It's not just the opinion of me, some Westerner who doesn't understand Japanese law trying to pump up the story for you.
Yeah.
It's what Serkan Toto called it. Cold-blooded business. Now, he runs a game consultancy firm in Japan. He is absolutely seen as a regional expert. He knows what he's talking about. And worse, for Palworld developer Pocket Pair, he thinks Nintendo will win. Now, I get it. You may think, I don't play creature collectors. This doesn't matter to me. Well, the bad news is it does. This is a direct threat to what we all enjoy. It is a threat.
So I've said this before. I just didn't put the video out. With this lawsuit comes a lot of turmoil for the gaming industry. Nintendo's been a titan and has always done this lawsuit stuff. I've seen it even in my small town. I've seen Nintendo come down in suits and almost shut down a business, put them into debt over some Pokemon games being sold early. Really bad scenario. But anyway, Nintendo has been known to go after companies that have copyright infringement or whatever, or even people that upload Nintendo gameplay have been copyright striked. So Nintendo's known to be cutthroat. The issue is that even if they don't have the greatest case here, which maybe they do, but even if they don't have a good case and everybody knows that, it doesn't matter because they have the resources and they have the power to run Pocket Pair out of money. They will suffocate them in so much litigation that it won't matter. That's why, and if they do that, it's just going to show that the few titans of the gaming industry, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, whoever, they can all just smother any indie developers. It's not going to provide any innovation and any further progression in the gaming industry at an indie level, which is, in my opinion, the most important level for us to see that forward thinking. Anyway, so that's exactly what he's going to say here. But yeah.
Against the entire industry.
Yeah.
And if past predicts future, Nintendo will almost certainly win because their domestic litigation track record is legendary. Now, I'm sure you know the phrase, if you come for the king, you better not miss. Well, 404 Media spoke to Dr. Toto, and it turns out, to his memory, Nintendo have never lost a litigation that they started. We first caught whiffs of this months back whenever the Pokemon company finally responded, and edited for brevity, this is what they said. We have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. We haven't granted permission to use our IP or assets and intend to investigate and take appropriate measures. So they said, we're looking into it, and certainly a little bit chilling. And reading that, we're all thinking the same thing. Did Pocket Pair yoink something? Did they rip a model from Pokemon?
So technically, it's not 1-to-1. But we all know that this is a total reskin. But at what level does it need to go to court? So there is a lot of striking similarities. I will say that. That is obvious. We all know that. Is it enough for them to have a lawsuit? There's probably not. And the reason I can say that with decent certainty, they're suing for patent infringement, not copyright. So there's probably nothing they can do here, especially because previously Pokemon has actually copied from Dragon Quest. Digimon and Pokemon have had that kind of rivalry as well. It pretty much comes down to, is this able to be naturally formed in the world? A bird exists. This is modeled off Anubis. This is a sheep. this is some random water thing. Like, that's not even that great of an example. Now that one's a bit tough. But you know, a cat exists. You know, there are some overlap. This is a bit of a reach. This isn't a reach at all. This is insane. So yeah. Anyway, there's a few things that are super similar, but I think they can get away with it. Again, I think they're doing the mechanics because Nintendo just had it patented.
They kit bash using models from Pokemon. Allegations to that effect were all over the internet. VGC actually spoke to 2 AAA 3D modelers whenever the Pokemon Company released their statement, and they basically said, you cannot in any way, and this is a quote, accidentally get the same proportions on multiple models from another game without ripping the models, or at the very least, tracing them meticulously first. One of those people said they would stand behind their words as an expert witness in court, but more relevant to today, VGC also ran it by an IP lawyer. The IP lawyer said, if proven, that would be a smoking gun. Today's statement from Nintendo and the Pokemon Company is not what we expected because it doesn't talk about copyright infringement for protected designs. Rather, it's about patent infringement. And remember, this is cold. This is business. This is about defeating your foe. So if the spirit of your complaint...
Well, you take the business out of it, where Nintendo is stationed has different values as it is. Their copyright is way different. They don't even want people playing their game on YouTube because they don't want to be associated with certain YouTubers. For example, so with Nintendo, it's very... the demographic is very young in general. It's directed at families, and it's been a family safe and family friendly brand for a long time. The difference between the example I'm going to give and that is that the demographics are different. Ferrari, they don't want you to do anything with their vehicles but drive them on the road. If you take a Ferrari off road and you take a video of it, they'll copyright it and then they'll send you a cease and desist. You can look it up. It's insane. Some of these companies, they are like, you need to have certain parameters if you're buying that, right? That's what makes it extremely elegant, and that's their marketing strategy. I genuinely believe they can do whatever they want with their IP. Now, as a consumer, if you buy something, can you do whatever you want? I think so. Within legal rights, obviously. I think a good example is with GTA and actual car manufacturers, right? So you don't see Mercedes, you don't see Audi, you don't see Honda, you don't see these types of cars in this game because of the things you can do in the game, right? So because you can run people over, you can do whatever with the car, right? So they don't want to have their brand associated with something negative. And Nintendo has an extreme with that. They will copyright strike your videos. Like, if you're playing Mario Odyssey, it's ridiculous, but that's just how Nintendo's run and ran. So we'll have to see what Bellio here is going to say about it, but I'm on his page so far.
Say designs being too similar is a weaker legal argument, well then your extremely expensive lawyers will not make that argument, but they will of course try to achieve your goals. And remember, Nintendo's lawyers are some of the best in the entire industry. And they've done easy things like knocking out these Pokemon clones from China, but more recently, we have a scary story. They won $30 million suing Colopil over patent infringement. And that's exactly what we're dealing with here. But what's spooky is the specific patents and how that litigation went down. And this is almost certainly, I believe, what they'll do to Pocket Pair because it seems like it's their playbook. They try to get them in patents. Here's a few of them. Quote, the special technology used to operate a joystick over a touch panel. Another one is a confirmation screen appearing whenever you resume a game from sleep mode. Dr. Toto summed up the others. He said this, quote, and they have 5 other ones, including one for isometric, pseudo, 3D games, when the character is hidden behind it.
So they have a lot of resources and a lot of money. So they're going to generally have more patents than an indie studio. It's dependent on how defined that patent is. So for example, if you have to press OK when you come back from sleep mode, is that enough to sue them for patent infringement? I don't think so. I feel like the law wouldn't think so, but they have it patented. There's a lot of patented things that were previous game mechanics that are now gone because it's just not, I can't think of the word, but it's not important enough. For example, or it's not defined enough. Sorry, Jesus. So for example, the sleep mode, you come back from sleep mode or AFK or whatever, and you have to click saying you're back from sleep mode. Nintendo isn't the only person that has that. Netflix has that. Netflix has that. League has that. AFK warning. You press OK when you come back. There's a lot of things that have that. So that's a natural thing that people would try to use to remedy things like AFK or people falling asleep playing the game or whatever, to limit the resources of the game or limit the whatever. I think it could be naturally thought of and not a very specific mechanic that could be patented, but they have it patented because they probably somewhat pioneered it or did it first before anybody patented it, or they found a way to patent it. What I'm saying is that I don't think there's certain patents I don't think have the right to go through court. Is one of the patents that they're suing Pocket Pair over specific enough to where it's like, well, you kind of did rip that from them?
A tree, the game forms a shadow, so you have a sense for where your character is, even though you don't see your character clearly. Do you know what's really funny? World of Warcraft just added that. So many games have that. You're playing an isometric game, you walk behind a tall building, but you still see where your character is. Yet, that is something Nintendo actually used. They do hold those patents, but many would say those patents are so broad and industry standard that
broad is what I meant to say. Broad. It is very broad and vague. It has to be extremely specific and very tuned in to be something that is able to be in court.
Valid. And that actually is a defense in Japan. It's one that, in this case, the defendant made. They said that Nintendo's patents lacked novelty and inventiveness and therefore are invalid, so broad that they're essentially meaningless. And this is where the story gets chilling. Nintendo didn't have to win. Colopil ended up having to settle. The settlement is, of course, a mutual agreement between both companies to come to...
This is exactly what I'm saying. Nintendo doesn't need to win. They need to have more money, more resources, more time, which they do. Pocket Pair has already admitted on Twitter, on whatever, wherever they posted their, I seen it on Twitter, but wherever they posted their, hey, this is what's happening. In there, they said, it's unfortunate that we'll have to focus more on this and use resources on this and not game development. That just shows that they don't have the resources to do both, or at least they're trying to lead the audience to say, hey, we don't have the resources to do both because we're indie and get people on their side. I don't know. But they definitely do not have the same amount of resources as Nintendo. That's all they need. Does Nintendo have more resources than Pocket Pair? Yes, Nintendo wins. Doesn't matter. They don't even win. They just settle, and that's a win on their end.
Terms and stop the legal fight, but make no mistake, Nintendo were not the losers here, and it's worse than that. The settlement involves Colopil having to pay Nintendo a licensing fee for those patents. Now, by the law of the land, Nintendo did not prove their patent claim, as far as my understanding goes. Yet, even though they didn't prove that legally,
but they drowned them in litigation.
They successfully strong-armed their target into number one, giving up a lot of money, and number two, into a licensing deal for those patents that many would argue are invalid by the law of Japan. Again, that argument did not get fully borne out in the court. We don't have a legal decision. And that's the thing. The legal system is supposed to uphold the law, but here, the system was the weapon, and the law didn't exactly matter. Palworld then. Nintendo's filings are not public. That means we do not know what patents they're using. The people over at Pocket Pair also don't know. But here's a Nintendo example that Stephen Totillo found in the US Patent Office, and there is crossover between the US and Japanese patent offices. You can see this amazing art. Throwing an item to catch a monster. We see some WikiHow tier art of it. We see a flowchart. And look, if it was Palworld, the pterosaur would absolutely be holding an AK, but I don't think that detail is going to help Pocket Pal. So, let's talk about their response. Big Winston once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And, well, Pocket Pair are leveraging their biggest asset here, their community. And look, like it or not, whether you think a big rat creature with an AK is an artistically cohesive thing or not, the truth is, that Palworld happened in a world where most of my generation loved Pokemon as kids and then drifted away from the franchise over a continued lack of innovation and pretty damn scummy business practices that just about nobody else is able to get away with. In that context, Palworld captured attention and it used extremely sticky and battle-tested game mechanics, base building, collecting, automation to hold on to people. That does mean the community actually likes them by and large. And so in this situation, they absolutely are David, and the rocks in their sling are the community. Let's talk about their statement. They start by reinforcing that they're small, how Palworld succeeded with the community, and they end with the real message. Quote,
sorry, I didn't know he was going to bring this up, or I would have waited to say what I said.
Time to matters unrelated to game development due to this lawsuit. However, we will do our utmost
lack of resources, man,
and to ensure that indie developers.
Can I say what I think is going to happen here? And don't sports bet on what I'm going to say here. This isn't advice to sports bet. This is not. This is just my opinion. What I think is going to happen here is they're going to go to court and they're going to have this patent and they're going to drown them in litigation. Pocket Pair is going to have to take out whatever mechanic it is, pay the licensing fee, and probably like $15 million minimum. And then what's going to happen is Pocket Pair is going to be going to have so much litigation debt or law debt or jury debt or jury debt, court debt, that either they're going to have to, I think they're going to go free to play, and then they're going to add microtransactions. We'll come back to this video in like a year. I think that's what it's going to be, though,
from pursuing
because they're going to need to make money.
And that's really the thing. This is just the beginning. This
like, how many copies did Palworld sell? How many copies Palworld? 8 million units in the first 6 days. Over 15 million units sold. So 15 million times, how much is Palworld? How much is Palworld? I actually forget how much Palworld is. I just insta-bought it. $40. Now that's Canadian, so let's go down to 30 just for the sake, and plus it's been on sale, I think. So we'll multiply it by 30. They made $450 million, and it's only going to go up, right? Issue is, it's not a recurring income, whereas a microtransaction is. Now, they've already stated they won't do this, but this is previous before Nintendo's litigation. So, again, what I'm thinking is that they're going to get hit with a crazy lawsuit. They're not going to be able to do anything with it. They're going to have to pay a $15-20 million fine. They're going to have to pay the licensing fees, and then they're going to have to take the mechanic out of the game. The issue is that going to be enough for Nintendo to get off their ass? If not, this could be dirty. This could be dirty if they want to go through the actual court process, because they will have to settle, and it may come down to big numbers. And I will be following it. So subscribe, because I will be following it.
Legal, and that's how it goes. Palworld, though, is not just a small indie company. That's where Sony actually entered the picture. So a few months back, Pocket Pair announced a joint venture with Sony Music Entertainment and an anime company called Aniplex. Basically, right, they want to do what rocketed Pokemon and got, the Chin Pokemon episode.
I apologize for saying they're an indie company and such. I did not know this. This is something I should have done my research. That's a negative one on me. I did not know that they have a conjoined relationship and a partnership with Sony. That'll help a lot. I don't think it'll help enough. But this changes a lot.
They want to exploit the Palworld IP now, outside of video.
Issue is, does Sony want to go against this? They might be like, hey, we're just in a partnership to throw merch in some stores, man. Hey, don't look at us. Don't look at us. We're not part of it. Palworld? Pal who? I don't know what Palworld is, man. I ain't never seen it. Huh? Oh, is that little game with the little frog and the little sheep? I don't know. We're just going to throw some merch in a store, man. We don't want to go to court. We can't even sell PS5 as it is. We need to come out with a 30th anniversary one just to try to get 32-year-olds to buy it. I'm 28 and I'm going to, whatever. Same thing.
Video games through anime, through music, probably a card game, and everything you could imagine. And that's what makes me wonder here. do Nintendo see this as a threat? It may not be a threat now, because I think Palworld is
You know
appealing
what? Fair enough. That's actually a great point from Bellular. I didn't think of that. They can join with Sony and an anime company because they want to make it into a franchise and a universe, not just a game, which is fair enough. And that makes sense. And I think they could do great with it. Does Nintendo see it as a potential threat in the future? Because no one has tried that. No one has tried to say, hey, I'm going to do what Pokemon did. I'm going to do it again in a modern way. And Pokemon has a chokehold on the industry. A chokehold. Card game, video games, plushies, movies, TV shows. Bro, imagine a competitor. They have a monopoly right now. They're Disney in this industry, in that genre.
Different people than just the core Pokemon experience as it is currently. But if you look at the likes of Arceus, you do actually see that, while Arceus was rightly laughed at for its visual presentation,
it was terrible.
It actually did innovate the gameplay, and it was way better than any of the other modern Pokemon games for sure. So there may
Pokemon, if it dropped on PC and it had 60 FPS and not 30, and it was visually appeasing.
We want to innovate and push Pokemon forward. Maybe Palworld is going to muscle in that turf. And they've also realized something. Palworld was scrappy. It was an indie. When you hear about the development, it does seem like a little bit of a technical shit show. But that's the thing. It will only get better and stronger from here. And now it has got proper corporate backing with the
Palworld is one of those games that it doesn't, you're not waiting a year and a half for it to drop. It drops and you're like, oh, why isn't it finished? Palworld was an indie game that didn't expect to explode, came out, and it needed work. But they didn't expect to have 2 million players. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't expect to sell like Pokemon Red did. Like, they didn't expect to sell like Elden Ring. They were making a game because they fucked with it. And they didn't expect the explosion. So, understandably so, it wasn't polished. Even though I felt like it was. I didn't have any issues with Pocket Pair's Palworld. I thought it was great. As you just seen, I played 20 hours of it. And that's a lot for me. I usually play competitive games, not stuff like this. And I really enjoyed the game.
So for Nintendo, if they see a rival brand to Pokemon, would they not rather kill it where it is now when it's small?
Before it gets bigger. That's a
every
big
game developer
point.
should be against this. And I know that within the industry, many think that Pocket Pair are, in a way, creative hacks who couldn't even bother making their own in-universe version of a gun. They just grabbed an AK or an AR from an asset store and slapped it onto a pocket monster. But that doesn't actually matter now. That doesn't matter. What matters is this dangers us all. And it's something that's happened before. It is common understanding the game mechanics cannot be copyrighted. Exact implementation can be, but not in broad strokes. You can't go and patent the Metroidvania format. I mean, we used to call what's now the FPS a Doom clone. And yeah, if you're new, you may not know that, but in the 90s...
also, Souls-like. Everybody's saying Dark Souls, Souls-like, Dark Souls-like. That's with Elden Ring and that Lies of P, Wukong, Antoria, or whatever that new game is that no one likes, but everybody actually likes. You're seeing that happen, that like we're getting to the point where we need to define this genre because there are other companies that are doing it just as good as Dark Souls or FromSoft, right? Like Lies of P was great. Same thing with Wukong. I mean, Wukong was insane, right? So we're seeing the same thing. It wasn't
necessarily FPS, it was Doom clones, but the idea of a first-person shooter is not something that id could go and copyright.
No, exactly. It's too broad.
Specific mechanics, well, those can be patented. And that's because copyright protects the usage of the things that you've designed or wrote, and patents are designed to protect mechanical inventions or processes. The whole point there being that if you actually make an innovation, the patent system protects your ability to exploit that, and in doing so, it creates a financial incentive for people to innovate. The thing is, though, if a patent is too broad, it can become impossible to reproduce without infringement. And that's where broad patents are a problem. And this hurts you. I would actually say it has hurt you. You just don't know it because we cannot see the road not taken. The Lord of the Rings, Shadow of Mordor's Nemesis system was a true innovation, honestly.
This is the third video I've seen the Nemesis system in. I'm going to look into this because this system seems so cool. I might play this game.
Led to emergent gameplay.
I might play this game.
That actually saw people forgetting about the core progression and just having fun in the sandbox, settling scores with orcs. It was fun, it was dynamic, and it was a relationship with our enemies in the game that was actually player driven. But Warner Bros. Patented it. And thus far, nobody has got past that patent. And that means that one of the 2010's greatest innovations in gaming is locked.
It's not being used because it's patented.
Publishers. So if you're a AAA game or a AA, you probably don't want the risk. What if you're an indie though? Well, will a publisher pick you up and fund you, knowing that an American megacorp could just attack you? And even if you're a self-funded indie, well, what are the chances that you drop your trailer after working in secret for 2 years, your trailer catches on, and just before release, you get served with something by Warner Bros. And even worse, this chilling effect means that we're not seeing the next version of the Nemesis system, the next iteration or innovation along those lines. That's the thing. Nintendo is a bad actor here. They are, in my opinion anyway, using overly generic patents not as a true attack vector, but rather as a mind-controlling parasite, because this doesn't seem to be about winning the legal case. It seems more an excuse to pick up the legal system and to harness it to maul your opponent to death, regardless of what a trial verdict may be.
Exactly what it feels like is you have the wall because you are truly the Goliath. Nintendo's the Goliath. They said, here you go. We started and we made the path. We want indie developers to do well. Here you go. Here are a bunch of ladders. It's great. Oh, but there's 2 rungs on each ladder every 10 feet that are not there, by the way. And from time to time, we might kick the ladder over. You know, they just don't want people to compete. They don't want innovation. They don't want their pioneering to move forward. They want to milk this shit for as long as they can. And it's unfortunate because they're the biggest. There's nothing you can do.
Because as we just saw, well, they can pull you into a settlement that is amazingly favorable to them. Now, there is a story this week about development, about who I think you could call villains in the industry. It's about Unity. The whole Unity drama finally came to a close, and if you want
I really like Bellular. I think he articulates things very well, and then also on top of that, I always learn something new when I watch his videos. I'm gonna go. That's about it. Actually, no, wait. We need to look at comments. Okay. Funny how patents are claimed to protect innovation, and yet they actually do is stifle competition, thus preventing innovation. So, it depends on the patent holder, right? So, for example, I was looking at. Now, I didn't do this. I was just looking slightly at this. But I did a thesis, or whatever you'd call it. We called it a capstone, on different types of plastics, and if the pressure you apply to the plastic can tell if it's a different type of plastic. I got a bit deeper into it. It seemed really interesting, and then I looked at the patent process just to make sure. It was all too confusing for me. I'm a dumb fuck, and I make YouTube videos now. It's not for me. But if you innovate to the point to where it's going to further the industry, I think you truly should be able to be compensated for that. Now, when life moves forward and it's 20 years in the future and it gets more broad, because it could be super specific right now, but it may be very insignificant and broad in 10, 15, 20, 25 years, that's when I think it should be reevaluated. I think your patent should have to get reevaluated. That might be a crazy statement, and it might get me canceled. I'm uncancelable. I don't care. I think that's actually how it should go. Nintendo is mad that an indie dev showed Pokemon games for the bare bones lazy shit they've always been doing for a long time. So yes, but also it was a PC game. That's why it did well. No one wants to buy a Switch just for Pokemon, and if you have a Switch, you'll get Pokemon, right? Okay, you're under the age of 14. If you don't have a Switch, you can't get Pokemon. If you don't have a Switch and Pokemon comes out, you're not buying a Switch just for Pokemon. Palworld comes out, we all want a Pokemon on the PC, and now it's here. So that's why everybody likes it. Nintendo has never lost litigation. They started well. Everything got a first. Thought I wouldn't hold my breath. Yeah, again, I think they're pretty screwed here. I think they're going to have to do a settlement. Almost all the big gaming companies nowadays are utterly disgusting. Nope. That's untrue, actually. I think all companies are utterly disgusting. I think there are bad things in every single company, even not-for-profit companies that are charities that take a huge percentage. Oh, we're not for profit, but the vice president gets $227,000 a year, and that's just because they're hard workers. Anyway, there you guys. Hit subscribe button because I want to do this for a living. Bye. Bye. Yep, that's about it. Palworld sued. Bye Palworld. Bye. Say bye to Palworld. Bye.